Oh, that's what I've been meaning to ask you this. Are you taking Ambien? Or was that a joke on that podcast?
I'm not taking Ambien, no. Welcome to the Trash Cats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today...
we're talking about my main man, Marty.
Oh, boy.
But fucking intro. We got a lot of shit to get through. First question. Should public nudity be acceptable?
Oh, man, I was really hoping to talk about, like, my week and, like,
we're going in hot. We'll get there. We're going in hot, though. Public nudity.
I mean, yes, public nudity should be acceptable.
I agree, because I don't think someone's aversion to seeing another person nude is more compelling than someone else's want to exist how they are and not wear clothes. Yeah. Now, that said, we did broach this topic a little bit on our previous episode, and I can see utilitarian perspectives against public nudity, things like the spread of disease, health, safety, and we both tend to feel that it's hard to trust the public at large. Trusting people sucks. It's nice to have some form of protection, although it is sad. So I feel split.
Just treat it like a nudist colony. You can walk around, do whatever you want nude. You just got to bring a towel.
Nudist colonies are so creepy.
Got to put a towel down when you sit on the subway.
So I think ultimately where we both kind of fall on this is that public nudity should be fully legal, fully acceptable, although we both might not really ever want to take advantage.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't imagine going outside nude.
No, I can't either. But I feel like it should be okay. But I also see the health aspect. The CDC would be a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
So all of this to say, we're going to be talking about the recent sex scandals of German politician Martin Neumeyer. I think it's Neumeyer, could be Neumeier, but I'm going with Neumeyer. And we're going to be talking about this through a slightly philosophical lens. This is a bit of a wild one.
Oh,
but
boy.
First,
we're really taking on the hard tasks, all the big philosophical podcasts. No one's touching this.
Honestly, it sucks because the reporting around this issue has been so shitty, and it's all from the conservative side. And I think there are some important questions about sex, what is acceptable, ethic, those type of things. And I'd like to stand this guy that got so much heat. But first, how was your week?
I'm glad we did get to this. The week's been good. It's been a lot, just a lot of work, a lot of doing that. I'm dehydrated a little bit. I'm exhausted. My stomach is upset, and
are you covered in poop?
I am not. Thank goodness.
Then you're beating one German politician.
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit better. Doing a little bit better than that guy, at least. It is hot. There is a heat advisory this entire week where I'm at, so that's nice. Yeah, it's and I had to turn the AC off to come here and sit down in this tiny room and record a podcast.
It's a nice way to end the day,
Yeah, just to sweat it out in a hot box talking about a shitty politician. How you doing, Steven?
Terrible.
I'm glad to hear it.
Honestly, I'm fine, but I've got things happening inside of my head, and I've been addressing the jaded question.
Yeah.
And I really miss heroin. Yeah, I got
who would have guessed?
Yeah. We got a lot to get through. Maybe at the end, if we have time, I might dive in, but I think we should well, first, you got any honorable mentions? I got
nah, I'm good.
I'm speed running. I got two.
Shout out to Sleep.
Yeah,
pretty rad when
Sleep's
you get
cool. But I found two abstract-ish bands that honestly are worth checking out. All right, first we got Hate Beak. Okay? This is a death metal band that uses a parrot to do the vocals.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's pretty rad. But even better than Hatebeak, we got Caninus. Death metal band that the dude uses his pit bulls to do all the vocals. And it's brutal as fuck. I love it, dude. Fucking metal vocals. The vocals are just another instrument. That's the whole goal. Like, you don't want to be able to understand that much of it anyway. And the best metal vocalists are essentially mimicking dogs that have rabies. And this dude's like, fuck that. We're just going to use my dogs. And it's fucking sick.
That's pretty rad.
It could be done better. I feel like he broke the ice. But now, like, with better recording and editing styles, I feel like it could be used in a way that's even stronger or more brutal or flows better. But this dude, it's cool shit. I fucking love it. Check out Caninus.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah. All right. Let's start this thing off. Let's get our orientation. Okay, we're gonna take a little page from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is the go-to for philosophy. You ready for this?
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right. The philosophy of sex and sexuality includes conceptual issues about what sexual desire, sexual activity, and sexual pleasure are, and which of the three has conceptual priority. It also addresses the concepts of sexual orientation, preferences, and identity. Normative issues are paramount too, especially the morality of sexual activity and sexual desire, where consent and objectification have taken pride of place. Normative issues also include whether some of the moral questions that confront sex are unique to sex, the non-moral goodness and badness of sex, sexual perversion, and the value of sex. So we're just kind of keeping those things in mind as we address our subject. So that's kind of the vibe, right, we're going for. It's a little wordy, but I feel like in the discussion of sex, desire, most of these things are forgotten. Like our contemporary view, approach, or media around sex just sucks so fucking bad, and I truly feel like no one values it. Very few people value it.
Yeah, I mean, some people value it enough to pay, however many dollars a month for OnlyFans,
but exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm for that.
Oh,
still,
100%, yeah.
But there's just missing pieces a lot. So
those are the real scholars that are really putting in
scholars.
the effort and putting a true value to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to preface, unlike many of the people discussing this story, which has primarily been conservatives, we intend to take a much more open-minded approach. Also, I think it's worth noting, the reporting on this story is pretty lame and very biased. It's been tricky to find half-decent sources, and honestly, I don't trust most of the websites that we're pulling things from today. But some of the videos that will be referenced are indeed real and have gone viral online. But I would still take everything with a little pinch of salt, because there's it's really hard to get just an unbiased opinion of this man's story. Okay, so we're gonna kick it off with our first article. Here's the story. This is an article published from May 18th, 2024, written by Frank Floyd, titled "Martin Neumeier Politician Video, Explore All Details," which is a terrible article title.
Yeah, it's awful.
Germany's Free Democratic Party, the FDP, is currently embroiled in an unprecedented scandal following the leak of explicit videos showing Martin Neumeier, its candidate for Allentown, engaging in highly inappropriate and offensive acts that have caused outrage from both members of society as well as political figures alike. These videos quickly spread through social media platforms, with millions viewing them daily, causing widespread disgust from both political figures as well as members of the general public alike. I am going to point out, it's funny, these articles feel very poorly written and repetitive, but I think it's translation issues.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In one of the very unsettling videos, openly gay Neumeier is seen licking the public restrooms at a train station. Now, these videos, some of them are still on X.
Oh, good.
Most of the videos that will be referenced aren't going to be able to be found easily, but some of them for sure exist and are very findable. So the subject matter at hand for sure happened. The reporting on it is very, very conservative and biased.
Which is weird because, I mean, at least in America, the Conservative Party is all about having your liberties, having your rights to lick the bathroom.
Well, if this was an American politician, this story would be going crazy right now.
Absolutely.
But the world doesn't care that much because it's a random German dude. But this dude is a politician in Germany, and there's videos of him licking public toilets. It's pretty wild.
Pretty wild shit, man. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Many have taken offense at his explicit acts, which caused a widespread backlash against Neumeier and FDP. One video which has caused outrage is of Neumeier singing the Nazi-era German national anthem, Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, while masturbating with a sex toy. This has generated widespread outrage within FDP membership, who now seek to distance themselves from Neumeier. Many critics have condemned this video as offensive and inappropriate, further damaging his reputation and that of FDP as an organization.
Okay, so videos licking the toilets, they're very explicit. Like, it's making out with train station toilets, right? These other videos, he's playing Hitler, anally masturbating. So it's just explicit stuff that the voters and public in general would be pretty upset, I think, for these videos to surface.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find them offensive at all. But as a public figure, it is noteworthy, it's just, it is going to ruin most people's careers.
Yeah.
And then there's the element of it being in a public place that I do think kind of demands conversation over if that's acceptable, if things were crimes or not. Like those type of things are instantly going to be attacked.
Right. The big question always that people come up, with one of these things is like, well, what if you're with your kids and you walk into the train station bathroom and...
Of course.
Yeah.
And then just I don't know, as a landmark of sort, we're seeing what is like kink play or like pretty serious, not good or bad necessarily, but like pretty serious sexual play of sort, kind of going into voyeurism and pretty intense, like the Deutschland über, like Nazi shit being in, like this is like high level kink shit, right?
Yeah,
like this is
humiliation.
Yes, thank you. And like objectification stuff.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most provocative footage shows Neumeier making offensive remarks while placing a dildo on the Quran and degrading one of Muhammad's wives. The video was swiftly taken down from social network X due to violating its community guidelines. These remarks have since caused outrage in Muslim communities worldwide, further fueling his controversy.
Oof.
Yeah.
Neumeier engaged in degrading sexual acts while making references to notorious Nazi figures like Joseph Goebbels? Gables?
We did this last time.
Jobles? like Joseph Goebbels of Nazi propaganda of Nazi propaganda minister fame. For instance, one clip showed him saluting Joseph Goebbels, while another clip saw him spreading feces underneath his nose with comments like, "I have a Hitler beard made of shit." These videos have since been taken down, but not before widespread outrage ensued and further damaged Neumeier's reputation.
The fallout from this scandal has been swift and severe, prompting an official statement by Ahlen's FDP denouncing Neumann's actions. Quote, "Recently, videos were posted online showing one of our candidates engaging in indecent, even criminal behavior." I don't know if the criminal part is true or not. We'll see. The statement underscores this disapproval as well as efforts made by them to limit damage from Neumeier's behavior. Furthermore, they made clear that his behavior does not reflect their values and principles, and they took steps to disassociate themselves from him.
This scandal could have profound repercussions for European electoral politics as a whole, particularly with respect to FDP member Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, who is an outspoken advocate of more German engagement with Russia during Ukraine conflict. Additionally, its timing coincides with increased scrutiny on political figures across Europe. Its timing threatens credibility for FDP, as well as performance across future elections.
Wider political impact. At the core of it all, it is an alarming trend. European politicians becoming embroiled in disturbing sexual scandals. Daniel Gomez del Barrio of Spain's Socialist Workers' Party, PSOE, recently resigned after a video surfaced showing him eating his own excrement. Such scandals heighten moral decay among Western political elites while raising questions over integrity and conduct among public figures.
Ooh.
Who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Let him eat shit.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
It's his own. It's not like he's taking it from you, you know?
How would that be better or worse?
I don't know. I'm just saying. It's like
Poop's poop.
It's a victimless crime.
It's our poop, comrade.
He's taking the poop right out from my butt.
Taxation's theft.
Taxation.
Socialists are so silly. Should have sold the poop like a capitalist.
God damn it. God damn it, I can't just go on. The Neumeier scandal has ignited a broad discussion on candidate behavior and accountability in politics, calling attention to the need for stricter vetting processes and greater scrutiny of backgrounds and actions of political candidates. Public trust in political institutions is at stake. Therefore, it is imperative that political parties take swift and decisive action to address any scandals that occur and rebuild trust between their leadership and constituents.
As much as I don't feel like sex scandals matter almost at all, I feel like it's kind of true because the public overall, I think, really does care about these type of things.
Yeah.
And it's so stupid. And more than I would argue the political parties need to fix something, I would argue people need to grow the fuck up and get over it. I think in our world of politics today, they probably do have to make pretty decisive remedies to salvage reputation.
Now, here's my perspective on this. Which is worse? Like this being found out about a politician or being exposed in some way about a politician, or when you find out that like your politician is literally in the pocket of, at least one, if not multiple, billionaire
groups.
Benefactors.
Well, all of our Supreme Court.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is like you have these people that are like supposed to be the pinnacle
of justice. Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel
this
like
matters more.
this,
unfortunately,
that's what
it's so
that's
stupid.
the craziest thing. It's like that matters more. That's crazy.
Yeah, not the influence you're taking against your professional ethics. It's
like what he's doing in his time off.
Yeah.
I assume he might be. I mean, I guess if you're a salary employee, you're always on the clock. But
I don't know if I feel like there's probably legal distinctions about that, but I don't know. I think a question that we're reading primarily out of one article, but I probably added stuff from like 3 or 4 and a couple videos, like just trying to get the full story, and none of them addressed how the fuck did these videos get online? Because that is a major overlooked piece of context.
Mm-hmm.
This could be anything. Did someone else blackmail him? Were these videos put online with his consent, without his consent? Or did he put them online? Because depending on how this happened, it changes the context of the story quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
If this was revenge from a partner done against your will, if this was revenge porn, this completely changes it. If he put it up in like a sexual frenzy, that is very different. Like
a mid-goon just to destroy my career.
Like, depending on how this footage got to be online matters a lot in the story. And I've not heard one article or other person address that at all. Martin Neumeyer's scandal has caused significant harm to himself and the FDP. The explicit and offensive content in leaked videos caused widespread outrage and condemnation, promoting swift action by the party to distance themselves from Neumeyer. Once again, we've covered this already. Yeah. While its long-term impacts remain uncertain, such incidents undoubtedly have a devastating impact on public trust in political institutions. Parties must ensure high standards of conduct and accountability to maintain the trust of their electorates. So what do you think? First reactions.
I mean, I think we hit the nail on the head of like, is this a big deal? Like, yes, unfortunately, it's a bigger deal than I think it needs to be.
Yeah, because it shouldn't.
Coprophilia.
Like, I'm sorry, what now?
Let me hear that one more time. Coprophilia. I just need a little pronunciation. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Cool. I think that the fact that, like I said, it's like, this is so benign. Is it like outrageous? Sure. It's like, it's enough to be like, kind of like, oh shit, like that's crazy that this happened. But also, so what?
I mean, clearly he's got a great sense of humor.
Yeah, apparently.
Poop Hitler is objectively hilarious.
It's the funniest Hitler.
And the Islam Quran shit, I mean, come on. Deserves a round of applause. Fucking hilarious.
Standing ovation.
Yeah. The thing is where were these videos? You know what? I don't give a fuck about any of this. What I would say is the only part as a voter I would be concerned about is this man's judgment. How did he allow, like, what was his decision making that allowed these videos to surface, even though I don't care about them, that are clearly going to fuck his career? I don't care if someone is degenerate or whatever the fuck ideals people think are being decayed. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I care, like, if this dude's going to get shit passed that improves our lives.
Yeah. You can still be a good, a politician that I mostly agree with on policy stuff and be a pervert.
Yes. I mean, we see this with pedophiles.
Those two are not mutually exclusive.
Like, it just by percent of people that are pedophiles, like, we know there are hundreds, if not thousands or whatever, of people in government making big decisions that have various perversions or illness. Like,
for sure, yeah. Like,
it's just a fact of life.
The idea of to even consider the possibility that our politicians, or that all politicians are immune from being degenerates, is it's insane. It's obviously not true. Just a law of large numbers.
So what I do question, or would if I was German, it's just this man's judgment, right?
Hey, at least you're not Irish.
Anything's better than Irish. I'd rather be a fucking Nazi than an Irish. Actually, you said that, and I'm forgetting that I am Irish. 50%.
Oh man, Steven, this is where most of your stress and anxiety comes from. You self-hate.
So, all right, let's do this then. Do you find any of the sexual activity on its own problematic? Like things like scat fetish, poop fetish, voyeurism, extreme
other than
kink play.
Like, there are certain things with like I don't know enough about like scat fetish stuff to like in my head, because it's so distant. It feels like they're almost, and this is like just to illustrate like my ignorance of it. Like, it feels like there almost has to be some kind of mental illness in that. But that's coming from an outsider perspective.
No, that's fair. You're just being honest with.
Yeah, like I can like. If you were to stretch that analogy, it would be easy to see like, okay, so for people that don't understand like homosexuality and stuff like that, how people could even say that like, oh, this is like a mental illness thing. Like I'm throwing that out there as a way of like, now that I'm putting this into perspective, I can see where that comes from. I don't agree with it, but I see where it comes from.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying. What is interesting is and we're going to touch on it here in a bit, is one of the criteria for things that go past what is philosophically a perversion into things that are a paraphilia, or one of the criteria is things that involve death or the non-living. So extreme levels of violence or sex with feces is something where the sexual desire is linked to some sort of philosophical death. And that's like one of the criteria for this may be something that is getting farther from like healthy sex. So we'll get into that in a sec. But I do find that a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah.
So kind of to regain our bearings, we have Marty. Okay, we got our main man, Marty, our politician, seemingly engaging in public acts of extreme kink or fetish play involving, what is it? Coprophilia, okay? And sexual objectification and humiliation. So from the Greek word kopros, meaning excrement, and philia, meaning liking or fondness, we have coprophilia, okay? This is also sex involving feces, aka scatophilia or scat play. And scat in Greek is feces also. So it's a paraphilia involving sexual arousal and pleasure from feces. I want a definition for paraphilia.
Same.
A condition characterized by abnormal sexual desires, typically involving extreme or dangerous activities. So I believe what I was kind of referencing earlier is things tend to, like, pedophilia is a paraphilia.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but things that get closer to death tend to be that tends to be a classification that gets things labeled in the paraphilia box. So
I do want to say before we go too much further,
Yeah.
I want to make it 100% clear. I don't want to sound like I compared, scatophilia and homosexuality.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like you were
different in nature entirely. And also, I
You're
wanted to
saying
make
when
sure.
someone misunderstands, right?
Yes,
the people that
exactly.
would judge.
And ignorance of, just a lack of knowledge of,
Because to many people, homosexuality, and this man is openly gay, and that is almost like negligent in the story because all of the other things overshadow his gayness, right? Like it's hardly
that part doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
that has nothing to do with the point of it. But the fact that they mention it at all, I think, is unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. But to your point that I think you wanted to clarify just to be extra, like specific, but you're strictly pointing out that to a lot of people's perspective, homosexuality falls into the category of paraphilia, and more people today understand that not to be true.
Correct.
As they should.
Yeah.
So we have public politician and scat play. Now,
Cool.
Here's a question. Where do you delineate on judgment between water sports and scat play? So I feel like this is one that they feel entirely different to me.
Exactly. They're at least in my head, it's very different.
Yeah.
But also,
devil's advocate, I don't really know how much it should be.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's also, in the world of water sports, there's there's a lot of different stuff out there.
Yeah. I think the easiest difference is one is sterile and one is potentially infectious or could make you sick.
One seems like it's a lot harder to clean up than the other.
Depends on how hard you play.
I guess so.
But the scat play tends to get closer to paraphilia because it is potentially more deadly or risky or there's it feels more closely linked to death.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, is like are water sports considered paraphilia?
I don't know. I don't think so. And I don't know if I would imagine like philosophical paraphilia and like medical psychological paraphilia categories I would imagine are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where
philosophical paraphilia.
I would imagine they're very different. Europhilia and more colloquially a golden shower or water sports is a paraphilia in which sexual excitement is associated with the sight or thought of urine or urination. The term has origins in the Greek language from orion, meaning urine or something. So what gets classified as a paraphilia? I feel like maybe I need to understand that.
It's like it just pulls up a screenshot of your recent search history.
Bro, my search history is so off the chain.
Some real bangers in there, you know?
Paraphilias are persistent and recurrent sexual interests, urges, fantasies, behaviors marked intensely involving objects, activities, or even situations that are atypical. So maybe paraphilia more broadly is just what's considered perverse or atypical, abnormal.
So, I mean, it did say it's like a repeated thing, right? So, like, if you mess around with some scat play,
now
once, maybe even every now and then. It's not, you got nothing to worry about, homie.
I guess more broadly, I guess what I would ask is, do you find anything in these realms as like ethically bad? Or like, is there things that are abnormal sexually that just are bad? Like the limits typically are alive. There was the King Cobra thing I was trying to remember. Alive, non-related, and of age, or whatever. We're like, those are the three.
That's good criteria, man.
It is.
No shit. That's a good starting point for sure.
But all of those things, you can find reasons why they could be ethically wrong to cross those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, even like consensual, like consent, non-consent, like rape play, or like blood play, like things that hurt another, but it's by consenting partners. I can't find things that don't cross like hurting a child or an animal like as wrong.
Yeah.
While most people, I think, have limit where like the average person, maybe even people that listen to this podcast, I feel like to say like scat play is not wrong, I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
It's like, is it not your thing? Sure. But is it wrong? Is it a inherently bad for, you if someone else does it? Is it bad for...
objectively.
Yeah, objectively.
Ethically, objectively. Like,
I agree.
So.
Within the boundaries of, consent. Oh, Jesus, that's thunder outside. That's God
rain
getting upset.
Piss on you. Yeah, God's taking his dick out right now.
he's putting the hammer down.
I think it's so funny calling God's dick the hammer. It's so funny, dude.
I mean, if you could control time and space, wouldn't you? Yeah, anything within the realm of like consensual activity, I think there's nothing. It's not. It can't inherently be bad, right?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Anything within the realm of consensual activity.
Okay, this is perfect. You brought up this is the golden argument or debate convo on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. So you said anything with consent can't be bad. We're excluding like harming a child or an animal, obviously. The next question:
taking advantage of people does not count as consent. Taking someone's consent that's not able to,
yes,
be trusted to give consent. Yeah.
How would you argue that incest between two adult consenting gay brothers is wrong?
I couldn't.
It's very hard, especially if...
I don't think I could argue against that. It's not...
But 99% of people, that would be instantly wrong, disgusting, bad, no matter what. But if you remove, like, problems, like they're gay, you remove the problems of, like, the small chance of, like, reproductive issues to the child that could be born because you're imposing harm on someone that the potential of life. If you remove that and they're consenting, there's no harm they could be doing to anyone else, it becomes very hard to argue against.
Right.
The only real realm of arguments of like why that is ethically wrong or whatever is that the idea of a sibling, this is someone that has a position in your life.
You can't just break up with them.
I'm thinking
is
more
that what
like
you're going with?
Like if I think of an older sibling, like they're someone that has influence on me in a way that can inform or shape consent. Like your siblings are typically like a protector or someone that you protect, and that there could be influence in these realms that aren't good, so we make laws to protect that. Like in ways like you wouldn't want to have to worry about an older sibling preying upon a younger sibling or whatever, where there's influence or like power dynamics. But if you made the hypothetical more complicated, like what if these are 30-year-old gay stepbrothers that just became family? They've lived their whole life, like there's no power dynamic or whatever that could be affecting. Like it becomes very hard to argue against.
Yeah.
But the gut reaction of most people is like incest wrong no matter what, always. And I think that's stupid. So there's on the internet, there's a lot of incest debates that are very interesting because it truly is like, do you think about what you actually believe is right and wrong? Do you think of why things are good or bad? Or like, what are our social norms around sex, around like love, around, you know?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, I mean, I understand that argument of the, you know, power dynamics and whatnot, but that's the level added. Like once you get into the, as we say, if we take that out and we are observing it from a perspective of consenting parties by people who are, you know, forget the term, but, you know, like well of mind or whatever, who can be trusted to understand the thing that they're consenting to.
Right. Like,
then yeah, it's like once you, yeah, obviously there are, I can see that being a thing, but they can't, that, you know, if you're going to talk about the hypothetical that it could be a thing, then
where there is like a power dynamic that could lead towards abusive influence or whatever.
Right,
like
yeah.
Hypothetically,
but to say that doesn't happen in regular relationships anyways, of like,
right. Their power dynamics are everywhere.
People
even
dating, you know, their bosses
peers.
or supervisors, or people dating, you know, just even people older than them in general that, you know, they feel like they're learning from, or, you know, there's still a power dynamic there.
Like, I feel like if you asked most people, could a stepbrother and stepsister ever have a healthy sexual relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Largely the answer is always going to be no.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm asked to evaluate a hypothetical in which that is the case, my intuition is still probably going to like have a red flag, right?
Right.
Like it's typically, even if I'm willing to say like 99% of the time, there's probably something wrong with that. Not that I necessarily think that, but there are ways that there are worlds in which those people could have like a loving relationship that is not harming each other.
Right.
Like, I wish there were, maybe I just need better practice, but I wish there were ways to like describe what I'm hoping to question without the perversion of like, or like the shock factor.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there are like the age of 18 is a complete made up social construct line. There's nothing changes the day you hit 18.
Exactly.
But we made a decisive line to protect people. And I agree it should be there. But there are worlds in which a 16-year-old and a 30-year-old could have a very loving relationship that isn't problematic.
Right.
Like that's the reason we have the law, is because that's probably only going to happen like a very, very small percentage of the time, while the vast majority of the percentage is going to be like abusive or wrong or harmful to one of the parties. So we like draw our social constructs to protect as many people as possible. But things like a politician playing with poop, I think it is valid to question of like, why is this as bad as all of these conservative articles are going to argue? Why would this man like immediately be forced out of his political party? Why would this change how people vote? Like our sexual norms and dynamics, I don't know, that like between people, those things deserve, I think, more careful consideration than like the gut reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not...
Try not to sound like a psycho.
No, I don't think you are. I'm trying to basically, I'm trying to agree with you without completely saying the exact same thing that you just said, but I 100% agree that it doesn't make any sense for someone to, face consequence. I mean, regardless of how public they are, it's like it's not something that's hurting someone else. It's not something that is, I mean, it's a personal thing. And the fact that he shared it is
the wrongness.
Exactly. Like I can only accept any kind of argument that you could argue that there is, by doing it in public places where it was open, that it breaches some type of indecency
or like some form of consent by a passerby. Like,
right. Yeah.
There also could be arguments for the fact it can be seen by people online. And that goes to my previous question of like how the context of how these are online matter a lot. Like
exactly.
If this was between this man and his partner privately and someone betrayed his trust or embarrassed him, that is a very, very different thing than these videos were put online for the kinks of humiliation publicly. Like that is a very different intent and outcome, I think.
And here's the other one. Would it have been different in any way? Let's say the assumption is that he uploaded them himself.
I think that is the assumption these articles are making, but I've seen no evidence of that. Like, I don't believe any of them were posted on his accounts. I don't know though. I don't know.
Let's just for the sake of hypothetical, let's say that is the general, that's the assumption. That's what everyone seems to be going with.
Yeah.
Would it be any different if he made like an OnlyFans and charged for it?
I think by public opinion, it would be perceived very different
because it's not like it was just uploaded and it's not like it was just uploaded to public. It was something that was like behind a wall. You have to pay for it. You have to choose. Yeah,
upload. Yeah, it would be a very different argument. Like from people that are criticizing him, I don't think it necessarily fundamentally changes anything.
I agree. I agree.
Getting back to it, because we have a couple of the more philosophical questions coming
up. Oh boy,
so,
we gotta get to the smart guy stuff.
Some reporting has noted that Neumeier referred to himself as a slave in some of the videos, and that they may have been recorded in fetish play of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
First questions. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I have a series of questions, and I'm not making. I have no agenda with these questions. This is just for us to explore. So. First question was, is it okay to be naked in public? We addressed that. We both kind of think it should be acceptable, but we see why there could be reasons for it not to be and probably wouldn't want to partake ourselves, but it should be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Second question. Okay, this is the new one. Is it okay to have sex in public?
That is a much different question than...
It is.
Is it okay to be naked in public?
How different is it really?
Well, if we go on the basis of like your nudity is how you were brought into this world. It is your natural state of being. You as a whole do not exist with clothes on. You as a whole exist in flagrante.
What does that mean?
I think it means naked. I think I've definitely heard it used to describe being naked.
Okay.
I think that here's where it deviates, because I don't think that I believe that it should be wrong I think that it's okay to have sex in public, but
depends on who sees.
Yeah, what are we talking about in public? Are we talking about like anywhere at all? Are we talking about I don't know.
Well, if we ignore like the differences between public and private property, and we say we're just talking about public spaces to make it easy, let's say it's a park or a beach.
Yeah.
If the argument for nudity for us has been like this is our natural state of being, I think there also could be an argument like sex is a natural biological function. As long as we're not hurting someone, why should it matter? And I think the part that gets tricky with this is like, what is harming another person? Like, I don't feel like me having sex in view of another adult should be considered harming them. But if it was in view of a child, I think it... I don't know if harm's the right word, but I don't think it's good, and it probably shouldn't happen.
Let me devil's advocate this a little bit for a change. What I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, at least the verbiage of sex is a natural the wording you said.
Yeah, I might not like those words.
So
to be fair.
A natural bodily function kind of thing. Like that's like ejaculating would be a natural body function, bodily function. Pissing and shitting is natural bodily functions.
But fucking isn't?
It's an act that you take.
That all animals do to reproduce and have fun.
Yes, but it's an act that takes there's an extra step. It's like dancing is not a natural bodily function. You need a partner. You need something going on there. There's decisions
and intent.
You could argue that masturbating is a natural bodily function.
Well, if you argue that, you have to accept no.
Because they're different.
More animals fuck than masturbate.
And I'm not saying that they don't. What I'm saying is...
I think you do think that.
Hey, I've been to the zoo. I feel like there is an argument to be made that it is natural for us. It is a natural function for us. And I'm not saying that sex isn't natural. I'm saying that there's almost like there's a planning to it. It's more of an act. Something that you act upon. It doesn't have to be
public.
Yeah. Until we had toilets, people were just shitting where they were walking.
Let me run my hypothetical then. Mm-hmm. Me and my girlfriend were homeless. Got no cool places to fuck, right? Mm-hmm. We're in a park having a picnic. And by picnic, I mean we're sitting on the grass. Yeah. There's an old couple. They're 85 years old. They escaped from the dementia ward. They got their walkers and their canes, but they're having a lovely day out. And
me and my girl start fucking.
No, me and my girl, we got nowhere to go, and we're like, "Fuck it, we're gonna have sex right here." I don't, especially in our culture, this is not like something I want to do. This is like an exploration of like, what is wrong with that? How is that harming this old couple that have sex in the same vicinity? And why, on this world we're all forced to exist in, why is their want not to see someone having sex more valuable than my want to engage with sex? Mm-hmm. They don't own this property, neither do I.
I think
where's the harm?
The argument most people would make is like, because it's a public space that you...
Well, we've chosen to, but we're taking laws out of it.
Right. No. Here's what I'm saying. It's like, the idea is like, because it's a public space, it is thereby a shared space that you are sharing with individuals. Sharing means compromise. And I think I'm just saying, like, I feel like that's the argument that most people would go to with that. Fair. I'm not saying it's correct because it is as much your right to. It would then be as much your right to have sex there as it would be their right to turn around and leave if they don't want to be there when you're doing that. They can come back later. Hell, they should have gotten there earlier that day.
And I have very mixed feelings. I'm not like fully divulging, at least yet, like where I land on this, because I don't want to, in a world where there's no laws on where sex can happen, I don't want to be like, everywhere I go, there's like random people fucking. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There could be elements of that are super cool, and there's definitely going to be elements of that are like really shitty and like.
It's like you got to get the. It's like how they used to do the smoking section of the restaurant. You have to get the non-fucking section.
But purely from like from the perspective of like we're all just put on this world, and state laws, fucking country, I don't give a fuck about any of that. Why does someone else why does someone else's want for me not to do something that doesn't harm someone matter so much that I can't do it? Like, I feel like their reason for me not to be allowed to do this hypothetical has to be, they have to demonstrate why I shouldn't be allowed to.
I got it. I got the reason. So our perspective before was that you're not affecting anyone else. You're not harming anyone else. But, you drop enough loads in the park, some kid's going to slip on it.
Break the back.
Yeah. Or I'm going to step in it and then I get cum on my shoes.
Well, I think that is like where the arguments I think have more merit is like.
It's like where I was going in my head is like, okay, which is worse, like shitting in public or having sex in public? And it's like, okay, yeah, if someone drops a deuce out in the park, then like everyone smells it. It's there. Someone's got to clean it up, or it's just going to be there. And like,
depends on what kind of sex you're having. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. True. Yeah. If you're fucking Neumeier over here.
Oh, I think what you're getting at though is like, if the argument is like, we can't have sex in public. In my mind, you shouldn't be able to hurt, like there isn't harm in having sex in front of another adult. If they don't like it, they can leave. Yeah. But there are people like children that I think being forced to witness something or while they, I can see there being harm there. Right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And I may also made the statement earlier that like, masturbation is on the same, would be in a similar level as that. Now, here's a question to you, and I think I know the answer, which would be less acceptable in your mind, watching someone masturbate in public or watching people have sex in public. Which would startle you more?
If I'm being like fully honest, both would bother me in our world as it is, like initially, but I truly don't think I care, or where I do care. And this is the part I feel like most people at their core do feel similarly. What truly matters is how beautiful or ugly the people are.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a big part of it.
It's like, but it's okay. Like in my head, what makes it to most people, including myself, acceptable or not acceptable is if we find desire in what we're witnessing or not. Yeah. If it appeals to us, it of course isn't going to offend. If it's upsetting to us because they weren't the type of aesthetic we wanted or whatever, then it is upsetting.
So here's the my argument that I had. That's a well thought out answer, and I agree with it. If I went to a park and I saw two people having sex, it would be, how do I know this isn't just a moment of heat and passion that kind of got out of control, or maybe it's like spontaneity, or like the example you gave, they didn't have somewhere else to do it, but you walk out and you see just homeboy jerking it, and you're like, man, come on, dog, just
it lends to perversion easier.
You could have gone somewhere else. Like, this is for you. This is only for you.
Sure,
could have gone somewhere else with that. At least that's the thought process in my head of it. It's like, it's not that it offends me any more or less, but it's like, it seems more inconsiderate.
In my head, the differences from a legal standpoint would be impossible to decipher. But in my mind, a man jacking off alone in the woods, out of sight of anyone, I can't find a single thing wrong with that.
It's like, if a tree falls and there's no one around to hear it.
If a man comes in the woods
and no one's around to see it.
Did it even happen? But if the same man is doing the trench coat thing and they're like staring at young women, it's obvious there is some sort of harm. But the problem itself of like a person masturbating in public, it isn't inherently wrong to me. It's what the intention, or like what is being pushed onto another, is what matters. Like, I don't see any good argument for like a person masturbating alone in the wilderness, how that is objectively wrong. I don't think
agreed.
It is.
Agreed.
Yeah. So
I definitely not disagree with you on that.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. To push along, Martin Neumeier, it's so much of a scandal because of his political position of power. Does the arguments against him change at all if he was just a regular person? Like, if we saw this it was a viral story on social media, this was just a random person. Like, does the politics change it that much?
No, it only changes it because people have heard his name before. They know who he is.
Like the viral
if it was just a random person, it wouldn't even be a headline. It would be something on a tiny little box in the bottom of it. Wouldn't even make news.
That's not necessarily. It just depends on the internet. It still could be news. So the question is it?
I mean, think of all the other people that have that upload.
There's local news stories all the time of like some dude gets busted having sex somewhere.
But he didn't get busted doing it. He got busted because he uploaded content.
Or content was uploaded. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it was something that they got caught doing it, that could be news.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if it was anybody else that uploaded, because people do it all the time.
Every day we could have this running on our news bars.
Yeah. It's just the little ticker across the bottom.
All right. So here's the question then. Assuming you previously would have voted for him, considering the incident, would you still give Neumeier your vote in the future?
So that's the thing, is like, if I don't know this politician from the wall, I don't know what they actually stand for.
Let's make the assumption we agree with all their politics.
Yeah, let's make the assumption that this is the perfect candidate for me, and I agree with what they stand for. Yeah, for sure, I would still.
I would have a little hesitancy. I think I probably would agree in the manner of which you did, but I would be hesitant just because I would be questioning their judgment. Even in the sense of like, I don't care they made these videos. I don't care about their sex life, what their interests are.
It's like, dog, you got an election coming up and you release these.
The nature of their sex.
This is a bad campaign.
More like, where is your judgment in allowing another or yourself to have control of these videos in which you know how harmful they could be?
Mm-hmm. Like, that's very fair, and I agree with that too.
It would give me hesitancy. I'm not saying it would disqualify them at all, though. It would really depend on what I could know about why
Man, it really
this
does
happened.
that context about where the videos came from and how they got uploaded
Matters.
really makes
And there's no
makes
info
or breaks
on it
it.
at all. On anywhere I've looked,
which is crazy.
This story, I said the date, it broke maybe a month ago. May 18th. Yeah, I have not seen any updates on
Man, almost to the day.
the nature of how this became a story. Because it feels like this really, to me, the vibe I get is someone betrayed him in a revenge porn-ish way.
Mhm.
Like, to fuck over his political endeavor. Which doesn't excuse necessarily his judgment of allowing someone that could want to hurt him to make this happen. But it is
But you would assume that the person who has access to those videos isn't someone that you would imagine would want to harm you, at least at some point in your life.
Exactly.
And and that is the thing of well,
that's
why
the
did you
judgment.
feel that way? What's the
Right, because did you record these for a stranger?
Right.
Or did you record this with a partner of 10 years?
Exactly.
Let's just say it's between those two, A and B. The difference in judgment there matters a lot on where I would place trust in this person as a politician, right?
Yeah.
Like, were they betrayed by someone...
You're doing some
they
wild
loved and
cameo
trusted?
activity?
Right. Or are these there's hundreds of people that have compromising material on you because you engage very recklessly in public places sexually. That's very different.
Yeah.
Here's a cliche question
Cool.
that often gets talked about, I think, by people that often don't understand sex. But the question is sex all about power?
All about? No. Can it be about? Yes.
Definitely can be.
But I don't think it's all about power.
Here's where I may be overreading. I feel like it is often about power when you don't care about the other person.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
Because if it's with the person you love, I'm all for power dynamics or relatively extreme play of various sorts. But even when there is power dynamics involved, it's all imaginary.
When it's someone you care about and in a relationship that you wish to nurture, it's
you're
for
never
funsies.
You're never truly dominating the submissive when you care about them. In BDSM circles, the joke often is that the sub is the true dom, right? The sub is the power bottom. The person that
the
sets
sub is the power bottom.
the person that sets the limits of what is acceptable or not acceptable really is the one in ultimate control.
Yeah.
Even if the dynamic is in this encounter, in this role, I have this power up here and you have this power down here, it's still all a form of shared imagination. We're playing our roles. There's not true change in power.
Yeah. Then I would argue that it's, I can agree with the statement of if it's just sex and it's someone that you don't care about, you don't have intention to.
Then power could be everything.
Yeah, sure. But it's also to say that all sex is about power is
silly.
Yeah. It's just,
but
that sounds like some Eric Kahn shit to say.
Yeah, but every single sex guru or sex show or thing online is always oh, it's all about the power. You know what I mean? It's always
it's some
even
shit.
Often from both from men and women that will say that, where it's silly. It's about his power as much as you want it to be.
Yeah, it seems like it would get old really fucking quick.
Yeah. All right. Moral limits to fetish kink. Like, I forget the dude's name, but I mean, it happens to lots of people, but there was the famous case, like choking yourself out in a closet with a belt.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like super dangerous, like a latex play, and you got a straw in your nose and someone's whipping you and you can't fucking breathe. Are there ethical concerns there, or is this, I see it as just preference? Although,
yeah. I think it's one of those of like, when it is something that dangerous, it's like, I don't think it's a moral thing other than like, maybe work yourself up to that. Just out of advice, like,
it's like harm reduction and safety.
Don't go from never doing something like that to, suddenly you're in a position where you can't control your natural, airflow.
Well, I think here's where I feel like there would be lines that we probably both agree on. I almost see it akin to like suicide or suicidal behavior. Like if your fetish or kink is so extreme, you're taking a life and death risk. Like before sex, every time you literally spin your fucking revolver and play Russian roulette, because that's what makes that's what makes good coming good. Yeah. Like if you're taking that level of risk, I would relate it to suicide in the sense the act of it itself is not what's good or bad, but it's the people that rely on you. Exactly, like if by harming yourself, are you harming people that need you? Like if you're a father of 10, you got 10 little rugrats, and every weekend you're like spinning a revolver to your dome before sex, then I could see there being an argument of like, well, this sex probably isn't very like ethically.
Yeah,
or like okay.
There are concerns about this. Yeah.
Of the, I think in general, like doing harm to yourself is
based.
Yeah. It's like, there's things to be learned or gained. At the very least, it's neutral. But when you're harming other people through harming yourself, I think that harm is real or can be real.
Yeah.
In the realms of voyeurism or like public stuff, one of the questions that gets asked is when you're engaging in things that are sexual that other people don't notice, is that okay or not? Like, let's say you're the whatever the fuck it's called, the overcoat, trench coat thing, and you're able to jack off, or you could just like press a button on your watch and you can come and no one will ever notice. Like, is that okay? And then a step farther is, let's say your partner has a foot fetish. Is it okay that you're intentionally going places barefoot and no one else, is picking up on it, but you're like publicly
you're constantly
subverting.
Edging them.
Yeah, in front of like other people who don't realize this is happening. Like, where's the level? Yeah.
I mean, I thought about that too with like, there's the increase of videos of people that are like, oh, we got this little vibrator and I can control it with the phone with the app, and we're going to go out on a date and do these things in public and see
butt plug at the grocery store vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like,
it's fun. I'm all for it. But
I'm here for it. It's just I pictured the situation of like the trench coat. You push a button on your watch and it makes you come. Like, there's certainly a thing of like, if I don't know what's happening, of course it's whatever. But if I could tell, if I could tell someone next to me on the elevator was like just busting one real quick, it would be like, ew, dude, come on, man.
So basically, it's all okay as long as you're sneaky enough.
Yeah. I mean,
it does kind of matter.
It does matter. I mean, also to prove your point from earlier, as much as it does kind of suck, I wish I was a little bit more open-minded about it, I guess. But like, I mean, if it was an attractive woman doing it, then I can't say I would be as upset about it then.
It changes it. And
it really does.
And it really doesn't ethically make sense. This is like the part of it is that is more like human or nuanced or like emotion or preference or aesthetic based. Here in a sec, we're going to get into like philosophically, there are categories of good and bad sex, beautiful and ugly sex, aesthetic or unpleasing sex. Like these parts of our personality that have preference really do shape what seems to be good or bad, ethical or not. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Let me jump into this because I just thought of something. I thought of an argument of why it would be wrong even if it was nonchalant and no one knew about it.
Okay.
And here's the thing, you couldn't police it anyway, but
no.
If part of the thing that is exciting you and making you get off is the fact that you're in public around non-knowing people, non-consenting people, that would be arguably inherently wrong.
I'm not sure what I think.
If I can't consent to you busting a load in the elevator next to me, and it's like part of it is if you're doing it, it's like whatever. If you're doing it, if the reason you're doing it is because you're excited by the fact that you're in the elevator with a person, a second party that has no involvement, it's like that makes it worse. That makes it weirder, I think, on my part. Because then it's like, I've played a role in it.
Yes, you're involving someone through subverting their involvement.
If it has nothing to do, and that's the thing, you can't police that because you can't, you
can't know intent.
Exactly.
Fully. Like in court, we're able to establish it, but it will never know 100% what's in someone's heart, mind, or whatever.
Right.
All right. Philosophical question.
Mm-hmm.
You're on an elevator, and a guy in a trench coat turns to the corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a big, beefy man with a big trench coat. You can't see what he's doing in the corner of this elevator, right?
Okay.
But for some reason, the fire alarm triggers. You're stuck in this elevator for like 15 minutes, but they get you out pretty quick. And on your way out, you see he fucking splooged all over the walls, right? Mm-hmm. And he says nothing to you, as if you weren't even there. And he goes out and gets he's got a handkerchief, and you see him wipe it up, gets hand sanitizer, fucking cleans it all down.
That's considerate.
And he goes about his day. If I was in that elevator, I don't like that, right? This displeases me, right? But I think if most people are honest with themselves, I don't think there was like an actual bad thing that happened.
Yeah, it's one of those like I don't
appreciate it.
I think honestly, the fact that like he cleaned up after himself would give me more to think about than the fact that he did it at all. It would be like
interesting.
I think my honest reaction would be exactly that of like, well, at least that was like
considerate.
Yeah, he tried. I guess that was like a.
And he had headphones in, and he was just ignoring you were there. You can't see. Like in my mind, it's like, let's say it's the beautiful woman, right?
Let's even say like you get on before. Like he's already turning towards the corner. Like he doesn't even notice you at all.
Yeah.
You're not even a part of his world. Yeah.
So it's like if this person was attractive in a way that you would have enjoyed whatever the experience of like realizing what they did, all of a sudden it goes from like questionably unethical to like, oh, this is acceptable. Like our preference on like what we want shouldn't change that outcome in our mind, but it does. And
there is still a little bit of like, I feel a little used, I guess. I felt like I could have offered more to the situation, maybe,
lended a hand.
Yeah, something. Exactly. I was just party to the situation and
scorned.
Yeah, it's like it's unfair, truly.
Like they didn't invite me to the party. What the fuck, dude?
It's like there was a whole party in the elevator going on, and I wasn't invited.
You don't even ask.
There.
Yeah. Fucking rude. All right, next. I would say both of us are pretty open-minded.
Maybe a little bit.
We don't rule that many things out, but I do think it's fair to say that many sexual acts require additional consideration and communication.
Yes.
I think that is fair. Like if you were meeting a new partner for the first time, like you had talked, you agreed you're going to have sex, both people are going into it consensually, and then you bust out some like crazy shit, that quickly could become not okay, right? Like things like choking, piss, shit play, consent, non-consent, blood play, impact. This is just like one of the lists. Chemsex. Are you familiar?
That? No.
I mean, all people do it, but it's a really big thing in like gay sex solicitations where it's sex with drugs. So like your profile will be like chemsex, yes or no type of thing. Like if you engaged, like you're with you're meeting up with this new partner, you both agreed you're going to have sex, but if all of a sudden you started pissing on them, that's the type of thing that probably wouldn't be okay because it should require additional consideration and communication.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything more than just even in the heat of the moment of like, hey, you cool with this?
Some things, do happen.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be more than that typically, but like, yeah, exactly. If it's something that's harmful, then you should talk about it.
Like the more extreme it is, probably the more necessary prior communication becomes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I think even drugs and sex, without previous communication, your partner probably deserves to know what your state of mind during the sex is.
Yeah.
And then like things more extreme definitely require the communication, like age play, race play, blood play, like the more violent or like psychologically harmful things, probably.
Yeah.
And these things all have various levels of potential risk and likely require more enthusiastic consent by the involved parties. What do you think of enthusiastic consent?
I think that's fair. As I can think of multiple times that it's like something's been suggested and you're like, I'll try it, I guess. Like whatever, but it's, and then you find out it's not really like, this isn't for me kind of thing. And it's, I don't know. It's fair to say like, there is a difference in like not having that enthusiasm behind it is not, I wouldn't say it's strictly a no, but it is a consideration of like, hey, we got to be ready to pull the ripcord on this at any moment kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings because like enthusiastic consent is a new concept in a lot of ways, but to many young people, it's a necessary standard of sex now, right? Like you would never engage unless we're both informed. It's informed consent with
the will and want.
Yeah, with the necessary enthusiasm for it to be consensual.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's some problems with that because a lot of sex isn't enthusiastic. You can have fully consensual sex that isn't enthusiastic, or elements of it aren't enthusiastic. Like anyone that's been in a long-term sexual relationship is aware, like, you do make sexual sacrifices for your partner sometime. Like, you don't have to, and not all relationships do, but a lot of people are willing to try things that they might not be enthusiastic about. Like, or do things like maybe they don't even enjoy, but they go for it a lot of the time because their partner enjoys it, and they enjoy pleasing their partner. Like, that can be okay too. Mm-hmm. I think enthusiastic consent's more probably like a good thing most of the time, and maybe more necessary with new partners.
You know, would you argue that, I mean, they may not have enthusiastic feelings about, like, this isn't, you know, like this isn't something that I want to do for me, but I want to do for them. Doesn't that count then as enthusiastic consent?
I think you could argue it could, but in the mainstream consciousness today, it would not qualify that.
Okay. I guess when I hear enthusiastic consent, what I mostly think about is like power dynamic things that are, you know, or like someone who agrees to have sex because they're in fear for, you know, a worse thing, like they're afraid of getting hurt otherwise or something like that. It's like they might consent to sex, but it's not enthusiastic because they're doing it to, you know, evade a greater harm.
I fully understand what you're saying. In the zeitgeist today, these young kids that are a lot more informed, and I think sometimes ignorant about sex. Clearly the situation you laid out, like you're doing something to avoid a consequence, that would always be like adjacent to abuse or rape, right?
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. Neither are you. But many people today would say, like, let's say you're a couple, one partner really likes anal, the other one doesn't. Mm-hmm. And the one that doesn't often goes along with it because it pleases their partner. Mm-hmm. And the other person makes an equivalent sexual sacrifice of sorts. Like, both people are okay with this. And there are pros and cons, and they negotiate, or they find ways.
Yeah. Damn, I always forget the word. I just used the word earlier. Compromise. Yeah.
A lot of people today would say, if it's not all elements, if they are not all enthusiastically consenting, then it is clear that the partner who likes thing A is pressuring unjustly the person who doesn't. So, like, even if we don't want there to be, there are power dynamics that are being abused, and that even if the person agrees, because of whatever negotiating or mutual satisfaction or vicarious satisfaction, it's still not okay because they didn't do it out of their own want to. I would disagree with that.
Yeah,
but that is part of the conversation today.
I can absolutely see that being a circumstantial situation, and having a precedent for that is. I feel like, I mean, it does more good, I guess, than it does truly harm, but
most likely,
yeah. But it's I mean, don't you know? I like me some good consent. You know,
it's necessary.
Even in, you know, non-consensual play, the consent is the important part of that.
Yeah.
That makes it, you know,
okay to explore.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, don't you know, get it wrong as thinking that, like, oh, that's not, then they're against consent, but I can understand that perspective, and somewhat also I can find holes in it.
Yeah, like overall, like you said, it's probably a good thing. But there also is, like, part of what I consider to be like fulfilling or like healthy or like good sex is like exploring things too. And I think it is ideal or best for there to be times to experiment or try things that are out of our comfort zones, that are things that we are willing to, like, because we have trust or love or whatever in the partner, we're willing to try unenthusiastically because we realize that there could be elements of this thing we like or things that make the other person happy. Like,
and I mean, in a no, like a solid no is still a
different.
no. Yeah. And it's like, okay, yeah, then like, well, if it's a hard pass and it's a hard pass, then that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. All right. On to one of the most extreme examples that I feel like is relevant because it's demonized and stigmatized so heavily. Are you familiar with bug chasing?
No.
Okay, so bug chasing is an HIV fetish. So this is
like trying to contract it.
Yes,
I have heard
give
of
it,
this.
And it is primarily in gay communities because it is pretty fucking rare to get HIV in straight sex these days. Not saying that's a good or bad thing. That's just statistically true. So bug chasing is a very like hyper specific niche. It's an extremely small fringe group that very few people engage in, but is very often demonized or stigmatized or just fear-mongered by people that hate gay people. But it does happen. I mean, any sexual act you can imagine has happened by someone before. But there are some communities, most of it being imaginary, online, dark fantasy stuff. But there are groups like that online and a very, very, very small amount of people that probably go through with it in real life. But the idea is bug chasing is the particularly rare practice of intentionally seeking, I've also heard some people say giving too, the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, infection through sexual activity.
Now, seeking it is very different than giving it. I mean, if
it's all about who sets the limit, right?
If the other participant is, also consensual to it.
Yeah, assuming it's all consuming in this very small group of people that are either intentionally seeking or giving HIV. We're assuming it's all consensual, right? Like giving someone HIV against their will. People are charged with manslaughter or whatever. Like,
right, yeah.
That happens. We're saying people who are eroticized. How do you say that?
Eroticized? Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah.
Yeah, is that how you would say that? They find the fantasy of an STD, an infection like HIV, to be sexually stimulating. If we're saying this is inconsensual people, there's a very different thing happening for the people that want to give the infection versus the people that want to receive it. That's a very different dynamic, but I don't know how different that act is.
Right.
Because if it's consensual, it can never happen unless a person wants the infection.
Right.
So I don't know if I would even change like the onus of blame on any one of the parties.
Right.
But essentially it's a subculture of people who have bareback sex, men who have unprotected sex with other men. It is statistically rare for men to self-identify as bug chasers, and many of those who do never participate in the sexual acts that actually could lead them to an HIV infection. It is 99.9% of fantasy. And I had mixed feelings about including this at all. There was a recent documentary that came out about this, and it was a gay man that had HIV for the last 10 years, and he was saw one of these groups online and was fascinated by it because he thought it was so sad. Like, he felt truly heartbroken to see people seeking to spread this disease that had ravaged his life for the last decade. Mm-hmm. And he felt the need to understand it and was able to successfully infiltrate, not even infiltrate a group, because it was just a couple people out of like, all the forums online. He was finally able to find a couple people that was their reality, that they did engage in the intentional passing of infection. And the person I saw reviewing this documentary found it to be so disgusting, right? They thought it was so depraved, disgusting. There's no way they could ever understand someone ever wanting to do. There's no part of humanity that could find any emotional reasons, like, for a person to sexually desire this thing that hurts them. Mm-hmm. And I found that incredibly, I don't know, ignorant's not the right word, just like closed-minded. Yeah,
that's exactly what I thought too.
I found that to be like equally as sad. Where like,
I don't see how it's that much different than the, autoerotic asphyxiation kind of thing, of like, or, the holding a revolver to your head kind of thing. Like, is it extremely dangerous? Yes. But that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah. And I would argue, I don't even think it's different from having sex with someone that is just not good for you. It's the same thing on very different scales.
Yeah. It's like, you can't, someone goes out searching for Dracula in hopes of becoming a vampire, They're gonna, Dracula's gonna bite them.
Get bit by a few bats.
Yeah, they're gonna get bit a few times, and then then they're suddenly riddled with the sanguineous virus or whatever the fuck, and is there a party to be blamed here? No, I don't think anyone's at a victimhood.
You don't think there's any victimhood involved in giving HIV, even consensually?
I think there could be an argument to be made about the, mental health and wellness of someone who wants HIV.
I could almost go as far to argue is that,
or someone who wants to give HIV to someone else.
I could almost go as far to argue that it's something I very much can understand, but that there's no form of like an acceptable ethic involved, because it is such a harmful disease that it would make it impossible to ever have a truly informed consent.
Yeah.
That
I can agree with that.
No one could fully understand how bad this thing could affect them, that it's almost unconsentable. But I think like sex is a powerful tool we should be allowed to hurt ourselves with. Where as like sad as it could be, like people hurt themselves with sex all the time, and especially when it's in the realm of fantasy and no virus is transmitted. There's nothing wrong with that. It's edgy or risky or like potentially dangerous thinking or whatever, but we deserve the right to hurt ourselves too, where sex is often used that way. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of like emotional reasons that people could be drawn to such an extreme fetish of sorts.
Yeah.
Some of the textbook examples for the behavior and fantasies of bug chasing range from sexual excitement at the idea of HIV positive status to finding shared sense of community with other HIV positive people. And I could definitely understand that element of it if you were already someone with HIV. I definitely see how like fetishizing it to find other people who are in a similar status as yourself could make a lot of sense.
Now, here's let me throw this one at you. I don't know of a percentage. I feel like I know this to be a thing that people have either made jokes about or like implied, that there are people who join the military in hopes to go off to war and, do their heroic deed and lose their legs in battle or lose their arm or something and come home with the Purple Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not too much different than this? In the sense
I
of
see
like
you're the parallels you're drawing, but
seeking a sense of status or a place among a community that you otherwise don't necessarily need to have a place among, and it would be better for your health. It would be better for your well-being and the well-being of the people who rely on you to not.
I know in the 80s, maybe 70s, the like early gay rights advocacy era where HIV was ravaging the communities and our government had decided like it wasn't a priority and they were doing the quilts and all that shit. There definitely were like more extreme protesters that consensually chose to get HIV to make a point, right? Like that. Mm-hmm. There were people that weaponized it in a sense for attention, for a positive change. I can definitely see that there being a parallel of that appeal that you're drawing. I'd imagine it's a lot less today, or like it doesn't relate to that nearly as often today. But I very much can understand the thrill of harm or the fantasy of hurting yourself, the high stakesness of it,
especially like in for a sense of status,
I feel like sense the status of glory. Part, I feel like that's. I feel like that's the least.
I understand that less, but I think it's fascinating.
It's definitely fascinating, and to be clear, this whole like bug chasing thing, I feel like I even heard the guy that made the recent documentary felt conflicted of how the documentary was received, because this is like classic Republican talking points right now.
Of course.
This is the like gay people are they're fucking disgusting demons that they fetishize giving each other this infection, right? Like that's a very it's something a lot of people say in certain groups.
Just give each other hand jobs at theater shows like a regular person.
I just find it incredibly sad that someone would not be able to have the imagination enough to understand why people hurt themselves through sex.
Yeah.
What seemingly are extreme or wild ways. And I'm not saying that this wouldn't be like one of the most extreme fetishes or pursuits or whatever.
Yeah.
But it makes complete sense to me why someone could be drawn. Even if I was like, had the point of view like they clearly are sick. And I think probably a lot of times, like with mental shit, I'd imagine a lot of times that is the case. But I definitely can understand how someone could be drawn to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's easier to feel that anyone who claims that they fully could never comprehend that it's easier to feel like, oh, they're just lying.
Or they have to be mentally ill for it.
It's like
I can imagine a sane person having that fantasy still.
Yeah.
Even if it is unhealthy for them. I don't feel like it's that hard to imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a firm line between the fantasy of and participating in when it comes to something that dangerous. I feel like when it comes to other things, it's like I don't know if it's just it's not as firm or it doesn't really matter as much, but like crossing the threshold of participating in something that dangerous is vastly different than,
It's like bestiality. Far higher percent than people would want to accept. People have fantasies of these things. It's like a joke online that women love dogs. Like that's a popular internet meme because there's like a level of truth to it, and only in the sense that a lot more people have more obscure fantasies than they would ever engage in. Like I think a lot of men in general don't understand that women have often equally and sometimes even more wild like sexual fantasies than their other male peers. Like we all have like inclinations, preferences, thoughts, wants, even if it is purely just fantasy. And that's part of what I think fantasies can be important. Like I never want to take away someone's right to imagine something.
Take away someone's right to goon.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man.
You gotta fight. That's a new Beastie Boys track coming out. You gotta fight for your right to goon.
The eternal goon wars. So
let's wrap this up. Let's work our way out of here. We've gone on some tangents here.
I think the more extreme the sex is or the fantasy or whatever, I think the more extreme, the more conversation and communication is required. The informed consent is pretty much always necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think often cases enthusiastic consent becomes more necessary the more extreme things are.
Agreed.
Encounters that can be potentially life-altering.
When we talk about things like this, it makes me, recognize, I guess not vanilla. I don't know. It's like I was going to say how vanilla I am, but that's not entirely. I don't know.
You're a freak. You're a demon, bro.
Yeah, exactly. to say that is I feel like that's a misnomer, but
here's a quick analogy I can relate. The easiest thing I can relate to bug chasing is drug addiction.
I was going to say that earlier.
You roll the dice.
Yeah.
It's like it's something that could kill you, right? Like you're facing a deadly disease of sorts, and you're rolling the dice because there's a huge thrill, or there's like a death wish. Like I feel like it's just like the most human thing ever. Even if it's hard to understand, it should be something that isn't imaginable.
Yeah, I was in my head, I was drawing contrast between like giving someone HIV to giving someone who, may have an addictive personality, their first, dose of heroin or something, like something that could absolutely alter their life path. It's like by making the choice to do so, to give them that, or to provide them with that, it's like, even if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it, but that still, I don't know. There's
something there.
There's something there.
I think,
I don't know.
I have a final excerpt to read, but before, I think maybe like a last thing to put a little emphasis on, something we both agreed, is just that I feel like all that matters truly, though, is just talking and understanding a person.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that complicated.
It really shouldn't. I think that, I feel like we shouldn't have to walk on eggshells around this. It's just fucking talk to each other. Talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be a dick.
That really is such a good golden rule. Don't be an asshole. Just to close this out, I have trash compacted a series of relevant excerpts from that Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on sex. Truly, if you're interested in philosophy, the Stanford Encyclopedia is the gold standard for philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's all free online. Highly recommend checking it out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to run through this?
Yeah, let's learn me something.
Sex can be practically or pragmatically good or bad. A sexting politician can ruin his career. Unprotected sexual intercourse risks contracting HIV. Sex without contraception risks an undesired pregnancy, and public sex risks arrest. Practically good sex does not lead to bad results and might have positive outcomes, a sense of rejuvenation, loss of calories, or a wanted pregnancy. Good sex most obviously refers to pleasurable sex. A sex act can be good or bad depending on the amount and intensity of the pleasure or pain it provides, though pain in sex can contribute to its pleasure, for example, in bondage and sadomasochism. We must keep in mind the different senses of pleasure that can come into play, especially pleasure as sensation and pleasure as enjoyment. 1. Can sexual activity be assessed as good or bad, not merely as permissible and impermissible? 2. Are there sexual obligations, moral obligations to engage in sexual activity? 3. Is sex morally special, or do the same general moral rules and norms that apply to non-sexual domains equally apply to sex? Even though explaining perversion in terms of biology seems obvious, a quote, perversion is opposed not only to natural, but also to normal, and the natural and normal do not fully overlap. Moreover, the concept of perversion could refer to many things: the immoral, disgusting, bizarre, and biologically abnormal, among others. Using only one of these to define perversion will probably fail. It might also be that the methodology of discussing this concept is flawed, failing to account for the concept's social function. Thus, some philosophers have proposed to get rid of the concept altogether. Recently, however, a new account of perversion in terms of its inhibiting, quote, shared joy, mutual exploration, self-affirmation, and union was offered. But this view seems to set the bar too high for what counts as non-perverted.
A good account of perversion might have to be prescriptive, capturing the core of perversion but not necessarily capturing all of our beliefs about it. It should explain why our beliefs are mistaken when they are. Furthermore, it will likely be a psychological account, a preference to have sex with or involving certain types of objects that are anti-life, such as bodily waste and corpses, that are biologically odd, such as interspecies sexual intercourse. Evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology would have to play crucial roles. What is the value of sex? How important or valuable is this value? Procreation, love, and pleasure are obvious answers to the first question. Sex is usually the way to procreate, so sex is valuable insofar as procreation is valuable. But this value is instrumental, and it is contingent given technology's ability to separate procreation from sex. There is also antinatalism, which implies that sex has negative value in its procreative aspect. The value of sex in regard to procreation is thus precarious. Another instrumental value of sex is that X's sexual desire for Y can help cause X to love Y. Here, sex's value is contingent on love's, and, despite sounding strange, the value of romantic love, especially in its early passionate stages, is not obvious given its negative effects on the lover and others. Still, if sex leads to the settled stage of love, via the passionate one, it is valuable for that. Sex can also express love and affection for one's partner and cement their relationship. Natasha McKeever argues that many goods of sex, pleasure, union, intimacy, and care, are shared with those of love. So sexual interaction enhances and strengthens the love. Even if true, all this still makes sex's value dependent on and instrumental to love's, especially since the two are very different.
Does sex have intrinsic value? If it does, it is probably sexual pleasure, as sensation or as enjoyment, a pleasure that provides people with crucial motive for having sex, often with drastic consequences. So then how valuable is the pleasure of sex? Perhaps we should regard our appetite for sex like we do that for food, to avoid obsessing about it. But can we go farther? Can it mean more? And that, dear trash cats, only you can decide.
Pretty based.
I think it does mean more. I think
absolutely
sex and love are intertwined and mean a lot more than I think we often appreciate it meaning.
Yeah.
And as pleasure, I think it means more than the superficial attribution it often gets, where like, oh, sex just for pleasure is wrong or not important. I think that's wrong as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Fuck hard, fuck often.
Fuck on the floor.
Break shit, fuck on the floor. Oh yeah.
Thanks again for listening, everybody. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, John. Working on that album.
I've been saying that for a few months now. I'm just saying, it's been about a year maybe you've been waiting on that, working on that album.
You're telling me, brother.
Just throwing that out there. Make sure to check out the show page at Trashcast on Instagram and news and art from the show. Check out Facebook for the memes. We
also got the new YouTube out. Big episodes on the way. This is Ricky's busy season, so I'm kind of in right mode, and I have one I haven't told you about that I'm saving for a day we have a lot of time, because it is a wacky ride. I think we'll have a lot of fun. But we got some cool stuff coming up. If you're super bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZCX. Finally got something new up there. I like those colors. Anything else new? I think that's all we got. I like this. I feel like these conversations are more important than they get credit for, just because they're kind of like gross or weird. And I think they're, I don't know. I think it matters a lot more than that.
I think I realize this is maybe the closest cornerstone besides, I think even in like religious stuff, we have some differences of opinion kinda on like extremist kind of stuff, but like you and I think both agree so much about this topic, and yet it was such a good,
still interesting.
Yeah, still a very interesting podcast. This is a good show. You guys should listen to more of this.
Bro.
It was fun for me to record while I was listening to half of it. I bet the whole thing's even better.
Fucking rad, bro.
Hell yeah. Fuck you guys. It's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.
Just kidding. We love you.